water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world.
Previously on Avatar.
The Avatar has kidnapped my daughter. I want you to do whatever it takes to bring her home.
Sandbenders! Shoo! Away from the bison!
Library sinking! Library sinking! No!
I'm sorry, Appa.
Where's Appa?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Avatar Vlogs. This is episode 31, The Desert, and I don't know if I'm overstating by saying this, but simply put, this episode is amazing. This is one of the best episodes of the series thus far. It's another episode that I've always liked, but I have a whole new appreciation for it. Simply put, this is just a phenomenally good episode. It's, partly because it is just such a harrowing journey for Team Avatar and all those involved. Now, when I say harrowing, if you took this plot and you put it in something like, say, Breaking Bad, it wouldn't honestly be that dark or deep considering of an episode. It would be good, but you'd probably think, I mean, yeah, whatever, it's standard. But again, when you have it in this setting with these characters, this just becomes an absolutely astounding episode. So immediately picking off from the last episode in which Team Avatar barely escaped being buried in the desert and Appa has been stolen, the gang is already very tense, and once again, we're kind of on the verge of collapse. Aang is basically angrier than he's ever been. He's just lost, debatably, his best friend in the entire world. They're stranded in the middle of the desert, and now nobody has any idea where to go, what to do, other than they have to get out of the desert because, if nothing else, they're the only people in the world who know about the eclipse and the only hope, basically, of defeating the Fire Nation in any capacity before Sozin's Comet arrives. And the rest of the episode mostly follows Team Avatar trying to get out of the desert, all the while Katara is just barely keeping the group together. And then in Plot B, which is just as interesting, Zuko and Iroh are once again, they're traveling along in the Earth Kingdom when they come across Colonel Monkey and the rough rhinos from the Avatar Day episode. And finally, Iroh kind of realizes that he's got to use some of his connections in order to keep himself and Zuko safe because, frankly, they're getting a little tired of coming across people who want to arrest them and trade them in for a bounty. So this plot, follows Zuko and Iroh going to a few locations and making connections with a secret organization which Iroh is a part of in order to get him and Zuko some safe passage somewhere where they can be safe, at least until the war is over. Now, that stuff is good, and I can talk. Now, these two plots are two very different focuses. Now, the Iroh and Zuko plot, for a lot of people, might be debatably the better plot because this is the one that really delves into a lot more world building. We see a lot more locations, like there's this scuzzy bar in the middle of nowhere they come across. We discover that there's an organization called the White Lotus, and it's actually communicated via the Game of Pi show. How there's just all sorts of other avenues of the world that we haven't considered yet, and how characters like Zuko are completely blind to it. But what really does make this episode truly phenomenal is the plot with Team Avatar, and just the desperation that this gang is having trying to make it out of the desert, not only alive, but completely in one piece, as the gang is falling apart and Katara is desperately, desperately just trying to keep them together no matter what. But I've always said this episode is great, but what really pushes this into great territory is, again, the balance this show has is with its harrowing drama and its dumb as hell humor. So a good portion of plot A in this episode is the gang, not surprisingly, is running out of water. So Sokka comes across a cactus, he drinks it, and if you know anything about this show, he spends a good portion of this episode just hallucinating these crazy visions throughout the entire episode, and he's basically being dragged along while he's tweaking out. That is so stupid, and in any other show I would say that was needless, and that's hurting the drama, and that's a useless inclusion. But here, not only is it really funny, I mean, some of the most iconically funny stuff in the show, but it does, in its own weird way, add to the tragedy of the situation. Because Katara basically has to deal with Aang, who is so angry and grief-stricken that he's basically slipping away from himself. Toph, who can't see in the desert because the sand is so loose she can't see any vibrations. And of course Sokka, who usually is the level-headed one, but now he's basically having a bad drug trip, and so she is just desperately trying to keep everyone together with what little resources she has left. And you really feel this. This is an episode that could have filled the plot of an entire movie. I kind of compared it to Two Towers earlier in just how these characters are just traveling and they're just trying to keep it together even though they're on the verge of collapse at every single point. And that's what this is. This is just a great traveling, harrowing, dark episode. And much like the last episode, this one does not end on a good note. It doesn't end on a neutral note. It ends on another just absolute dour of an ending. You'll see what I mean in a second, but man, if I can't imagine if you were a kid when you first saw these episodes and you had to tune in from last week into this week, hoping something good was going to happen to your favorite characters and just finding out they're no better off than where they started. In fact, they're debatably even worse off from where they started. This really is the point of this show, where not only does this season get great, the show was already great to begin with, but at this point, this is where it truly got cemented as, not only in my opinion, but in a lot of people's opinions, one of the finest animated television shows, one of the finest television shows of all time. From this point onwards, it's almost nothing but just topper after topper. And it's to the point where I, again, don't have a lot to say about it. I know I keep building these up as though I'm going to have a lot to talk about in terms of philosophy, but there's not a lot to talk about in theme. It's just good writing with these characters we really like, and we don't want to see bad things happen to them, but things are constantly happening to them. And you just feel so sorry for them. And it's made even better by the fact that they are kids. It's the closest thing I can compare this to is the original Land Before Time film, where it's you're watching these kids who need each other to survive, and they're just being dealt blow after blow, trying to just get to a place where they can hopefully be at peace and be happy. There's not some things I guess are worth mentioning is we're introduced a bit more to sandbenders in this, which it's an offshoot of earthbending, where they manipulate sand, but they kind of utilize sand the same way you would utilize airbending, like because sand is more of a fine particle. A lot of the techniques kind of involve clouds of sand, or they make these little tornadoes with sand in order to propel their sailed vessels across the desert. And we're introduced to another type of new animal, which is a vulture buzzard. You'll see here, it looks like a vulture, a bee, but it's the size of a horse. It's a bit of a freaky animal, to say the least. But this was an episode that was kind of hard to find a very specific Sokka quote of the day, so I'm just going to give you my two favorite ones here.
And now Avatar The Last Airbender Vlogs presents to you Sokka's quote of the day.
What is that?
What? What is what?
It's a giant mushroom.
Maybe it's friendly!
Let's just keep moving. I hope Aang's okay.
Friendly mushroom!
Mushy giant friend.
I think my head is starting to clear out the cactus juice. And look! Tastes like rotten penguin meat! Oh, I feel woozy.
You've been hallucinating on cactus juice all day, and then you just lick something you find stuck to the wall of a cave?
I have a natural curiosity.
And with that said, I am just discovering more and more why this is more or less my favorite show of all time. So I don't have much else to say. This is a great episode, and I'll catch you in the next one. Onwards and upwards, my friends.